Porto, Portugal. An ancient coastal city famous for its dramatic iron bridges, the sweeping Douro River, traditional Rabelo boats, and Atlantic beaches. It is a stunning landscape of rugged rocks, the fortress-like Porto Cathedral, and the beautiful maze-like streets of the old town. Welcome to Porto. Welcome back to Porto. We are stepping into part 2 of our ultimate foot challenge, kicking things off right here on the sands of Praia, Cabedelo do Douro. In today's video, we are fully exploring this gorgeous shoreline. We are walking further down the coast to check out the rugged Gaia hiking area and the spectacular Geossítio Lavadores rock formations. Then we are turning back to hike all the way to the old town, where we'll cross one of Porto's high-level bridges for some of the most incredible views in Europe, before finishing our loop at Campanha bus terminal to catch our next Flixbus. If you missed part 1, we walked all the way here from the Campanha bus terminal, tracking the river and counting 5 massive bridges along the way. Make sure to watch that, but for now, come along for today's journey. It is a beautiful, warm, sunny day, and the ocean looks relatively calm. Because it's still early April, there are barely any people out here, giving the whole beach this peaceful, untouched vibe. Now, I've never personally been here during other times of the year, but from everything I've read, these conditions can change drastically. During the peak summer season, this entire coast transforms into a bustling hotspot packed wall-to-wall with sunbathers, swimmers, and tourists. On the flip side, winter brings a completely different beast. The North Atlantic low-pressure systems push massive, violent storm swells onto these shores, whipping up freezing, powerful winds and triggering towering waves that crash brutally against the coast. We are moving past the beach now and exploring a bit further, right beyond this coastal car parking lot near Geossítio Lavadores. These colossal rock formations are made of a very specific, coarse-grained geological treasure called Lavadores granite. They were formed nearly 300 million years ago when boiling magma slowly cooled and consolidated miles deep inside the Earth's crust. Over millions of years, tectonic shifts pushed them up to the surface, and the relentless abrasive action of the Atlantic waves carved them into these massive, dramatic shapes. Walking among these prehistoric giants makes you feel incredibly small. You can see the distant edges of the greater Porto shoreline stretching out into the haze. Way down that sandy curve is the historic seaside area near Praia da Granja. It is a super convenient spot for road trippers, and there are already a handful of campervans and motorhomes parked right here, set up with front row seats to the ocean. Because we are still out here in the shoulder season, it's not too busy or crowded at all. It honestly looks like the absolute perfect, peaceful place to wake up, make a coffee, and just listen to the waves crashing. This place is an absolute open-air museum for geology lovers. Look at the unique textures on these stones. You can actually spot giant, shimmering feldspar crystals and dark mineral bands embedded directly into the pinkish granite. Over centuries, the aggressive sea spray and salty winds have carved out hollow, cave-like structures in the rock faces called taphoni, making the whole landscape look like a rugged, alien sculpture park. Alright, let's step off these rocks because it is officially time to turn around and start our massive hike back to the city center. Climbing off the rocks now and stepping back onto the walking path, we are heading straight into Parque de São Pedro, cutting right beside the Douro Estuary Local Nature Reserve. Check this out. Right behind the sands of Praia do Ratinho, you can see a large, calm body of water. Is it the river or the ocean? Well, it's actually the exact transition point, the inner estuary lagoon. The river channel curves right behind this long, protective sandspit to meet the Atlantic, which is why the water inside this bay stays so still and protected compared to the wild open sea on the other side. Now, as we keep pushing down this trail, I am not going to film the entire walk back to the historic center, because we already covered these paths step by step in part 1. We have another solid 4-hour trek ahead of us, roughly 7.5 to 9.3 miles, or 12 to 15 kilometers, back to the urban core. It is definitely going to be tougher this time around with the midday sun beating down, and I am not entirely sure it's going to be quite as breezy and enjoyable as it was during our quiet dawn walk. Wish me luck, and I will see you guys somewhere deep in the city center. We have officially clawed our way back to the historic center, and my legs are absolutely burning. We are standing right here on the steep stone steps of the famous Escadas do Codeçal, an ancient, winding staircase that clings to the granite cliffs directly beneath the old city walls. Gaining this much elevation gives us a phenomenal, sweeping view of the Douro River and the Dom Luís I Bridge framing the entire valley. But wow, the difference between the quiet dawn walk we did this morning and right now is night and day. It is officially around 3 o'clock p.m., and the area is absolutely slammed. Look straight up through the narrow gap in these old buildings. The massive iron framework of the Dom Luís I Bridge is hanging right over our heads. It is a surreal perspective. These ancient steps date all the way back to medieval times, when they served as part of the defensive patrol path alongside the historic Fernandina Wall. In total, there are 496 steps cutting straight up from the riverbank to the high historic core. You are walking past heavily weathered, colorful houses with clotheslines hanging right over the trail, exposing the raw, fading glory of the old neighborhood. Clambering up these cobblestones truly feels like stepping right back in time. It is an intense leg workout, but this historic corridor is leading us directly to the doorstep of the Porto Cathedral. We have finally conquered the steps and made it to the massive plaza of the Porto Cathedral. Approaching the scenic overlook from Calçada de Vendôme, look across the rooftops into the distance. There it is, the iconic soaring Torre dos Clérigos. It is an absolute masterpiece of Baroque architecture, cutting right into the skyline. You can honestly see and explore an incredible amount of history right from this single plaza. But I didn't do much exploring at this point. I was absolutely exhausted. It is officially 3:00 p.m. and I have been walking non-stop for 10 straight hours, covering roughly 18.6 miles or 30 kilometers since dawn. I still haven't eaten a single bite of lunch and my body is screaming for food. I am desperate to find a quiet place to sit down and recharge. Let's head out of the crowds and find a spot. Searching for quiet escape from the crowds has led me into a maze of random, winding side streets. I honestly have no idea exactly where I am right now, but it highlights a fascinating truth about the city. Just look at the dramatic contrast around these corners. One minute you are surrounded by beautifully restored buildings covered in pristine, glittering tiles. The next minute you turn down an alley and find structures that are heavily deteriorating, covered in graffiti and in incredibly bad condition. If you keep exploring beyond the beaten tourist paths, especially here in Portugal, it can be a bit of a shock to see the state of some of these ancient properties. Hundreds of historic buildings are left completely abandoned and crumbling right next to luxury renovations. I chose to cross this specific bridge for our hike back because it offers one of the absolute best, most unobstructed panoramic views of the entire historic gorge, completely away from the massive crowds over at the main bridge. Unlike the heavy railway or highway structures, Ponte Infante features a wide, beautifully designed pedestrian walkway running right alongside the vehicle lanes, making it fully accessible for walkers. You can easily walk across the famous Dom Louis I Bridge, which we already crossed on its lower deck earlier this morning in Part 1. The Arabada Bridge also has pedestrian paths, but it sits far down by the ocean. On the flip side, structures like the São João and Maria Pia are strictly for trains, and the Flixbus Bridge is a high-speed highway where walking is completely off-limits. Standing right here in the middle of this massive, high-level concrete arch, looking down the river valley at the entire city skyline, is absolutely breathtaking. Standing right in the center of the span now, and the height from up here is absolutely dizzying. You are suspended high above the gorge, and the vantage point gives you an incredible bird's-eye view of everything happening below. Look down at the water. There are loads of boats cruising along, people tearing past on jet boats making sharp turns in the wake. I'm honestly not sure if there is any other place on Earth quite like this. Sure, I know there are technically higher bridges in the world, but those are mostly tucked away in remote, inaccessible mountain valleys. You have an abundance of monumental, record-breaking bridges stacked right next to each other over a massive river, with trains flying across the high arches in the distance. And the best part, anyone can just walk up here and enjoy this jaw-dropping, world-class spectacle for absolutely free at any time of day. It really reinforces my earlier thoughts on this trip. Lisbon is undeniably a fantastic capital city with endless attractions for a first-time visitor. But Porto offers a completely different, deeply rooted energy. When you realize this breathtaking place is a quick, highly affordable bus ride away, it becomes an absolute must-visit. If you want to dive headfirst into a truly traditional, raw, and visually spectacular Portuguese city, missing out on Porto is a massive mistake. Before stepping off the span completely, I just had to cross over to the other side of the bridge walkway. Look at that view. The sun is finally dipping low over the horizon, almost ready to set directly into the Atlantic Ocean far in the distance. Seeing the historic core illuminated from this height while the day winds down leaves me absolutely speechless. It is the perfect, rewarding end to a brutal day of trekking. Let's soak in this final view as we head down the home stretch. We are officially trekking along Rua da Estação, making our final approach back to the Campanha transit hub. Passing by right here is the historic pastel pink facade of the old Campanha train station. I actually had no idea this beautiful 19th century building was the original station structure. Instead, I pushed right ahead into the modern terminal building known as the Terminal Minho e Douro. This sleek facility serves as the main northern expansion for the railway network, and it sits directly adjacent to the Campanha bus terminal where we started our day. And that is a wrap on our Porto foot challenge. Let's look at the final damage. Turns out we smashed nearly 25 miles, or 40 kilometers, on foot today, packed with some absolutely brutal elevation climbs. That officially goes down as my second highest walking record ever. It still doesn't quite beat my all-time personal record of 36 miles, or 58 kilometers, in a single day back in 2020. As for what's next on the channel, we actually have one more bonus video coming your way from Lisbon before we officially pack our bags and head south. And look right ahead, and our Flixbus is parked right there at the gate waiting for us. Time to hop on and rest these feet. Thank you so much for coming along on this journey. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and see you in the next video.